Hi there. My name is Neil Z. I'm illustrator, work a lot in digital, but I also love real media. And primarily I do fantasy artwork, but I like to join different challenges from time to time just to test out other people's systems and, see if there are any ways that I can improve my own artwork. And one of my long-standing issues I feel like has been working on faces and making sure those are lifelike. They actually look like a person. They're not wonky. The lighting's good. I've been drawing figures for years and years, but I've always been gun shy around faces, which is something I'm long overdue in fixing. So we have here a challenge put together by Paintable. It's called 1 Week Portrait. You can search up hashtags on social media, hashtag 1 Week Portrait. I think it's spelled out ONE rather than the numeric 1. I've certainly uploaded mine to that, and so did other people who joined me on the challenge. And this program is run by a French artist named David Belliveau. So he breaks down this really simple system. It was quite easy to follow. I'll go more into what I took away at the end of this video, but for now, let's talk about what I chose here. So I went with a photo of a friend of mine, burlesque performer Rendezvous. Been a while since I'd seen her on stage, but she always had a real great impression on me, and I love this portrait of her because I just think it shows off her personality. For this challenge too, it was well lit, sharp, had a lot of planes, the color's really good, so I selected this to challenge myself on for 1 week. Now, in terms of the real time it took to create this whole thing, it was probably about at least 7 hours, and that includes the drawing, the research, watching all the videos that he had put up. They're about 20 minutes each. Actually, yeah, if you want to include those, it's probably like closer to 8 to 9 hours, even though this screen recording I have from Procreate here only shows part of that process. But just so you know, whenever an artist tells you how long something took, it always takes longer because they don't take into account the reference, the research, the planning, the thinking, talking with a client, or any other number of administrative tasks that they have to go through. And that's real time that gets used up to create any piece of artwork. So with this, I'm also coming into this challenge with coming from some recent art lessons that I've been taking, copying a Barg lithograph plate. So, and that I'm learning how to make my landmarks and transpose them. Now, in my drawing here that I created, you'll see that I have what appears to be a grid, and I really want to caution you not to just, when you're doing a drawing like this, not to just take a regular grid, like the 1 inch by 1 inch squares, and slap it on top of the drawing and trying to replicate that, because that method it ignores the natural landmarks that are on the piece. Everything on her face is not going to correspond to 1 inch by 1 inch, and it's going to throw you off, and it doesn't train your eye to read proportions and measure how far and how close things are. Like, there's no relationship. It's just the rigid grid that you are supposed to follow, and in the end you might get something that looks like the original, but you don't really learn anything at the end of it either. And I really want to get better at this for my own, because I want to be able to draw a face with only minimal reference or out of my imagination, and have it look like a character, and be able to manipulate it in space just to so I'm free to create whatever scenes I want, which is something, I want to be able to do that for my clients when I create fantasy book covers or interior illustrations. So I'm going to start playing this video here so you can follow along these steps. So let's see. There we go. So he had us take, just kind of breaking down different planes to start out. This is the part that's the most challenging for me, and the part I probably hate most, and the part where the drawing looks the most ugly, because you're just dealing with flat shapes that are pretty like jagged. Like I don't think they look that great, but it's kind of building the foundation for going into it later on. So you can see, like, I'm looking at the major planes and major shape areas. Like, you can there are different ways to get that, where you like squint, or use Photoshop filter and kind of darken everything up and pump the contrast, just so it kind of hides those minimal planes that you're not really dealing with at the moment. The next stage is just kind of smoothing out those transitions between forms, and using the soft round brush and the smudge tool just to make everything fit together so it's not so choppy in terms of those forms. At this stage, it's still pretty muddy, pretty soft. Like he told us not to worry about that, because we'll go back in later and add more details, as you can see I'm starting to do here. So I'm doing a lot of adjustment as I go as well, because I want to recapture that sense of, the glow in the skin, the minor transitions in colors, and I don't want to lose that personality that's already baked into the original, but I also want to make it my own and not just recreate the photo exactly. So just going in, adjusting minor details, trying to make sure that I'm on point, and where I'm not on point, it's at least justified in terms of the final piece. So I'm making my marks here. You can see in the shoulder where I just kind of scribbled back and forth, just trying to recapture that plane and push and pull things as I go until I get them where I want. It's really like molding in clay, where you just kind of like move it this way, that way, deeper, shallower, just until it kind of comes together and snaps into place. Just mentally, that's what my process is going like. There's a lot of thought that goes into this. It's not just straight up copying a photograph. So like I feel like a lot of the old advertising art illustrators, they would modify their originals a lot, even if they're using photos, even if they're tracing. There's still a lot of their own intent coming into it as well. So you just saw that I put a background in there on some other feedback I saw David Belliveau give. He's like, yeah, like you got to look at your colors in relation to other things. So, having your background be pure white doesn't really help you. And what I just did there on the left was kind of like drew in some of those sharper edges just to kind of decide and figure out where I needed to add them into the right side of this as I went. Okay. And then I really like, like visible brushstrokes. John Sargent is one of my favorite artists. I don't want to look into airbrushy, so I kind of went back in with a oil brush, digital brush, to try to add some of that texture back in. And as I'm going here, you kind of see me clean up a lot around her eyes and just trying to make it look a little less crappy, I guess. And just adding some more shadows, get some of that occlusion going on, and here we go down to the bra. I kept it pretty simple because it's not that complicated a shape, and I don't want to draw attention away from her face too much, so just kind of like lay it in there, some basic tone and texture. I don't think I did more than 2 or 3 layers on that. And, of course, her fabulous lips. Like, look at that shine. There's a lot of makeup going on, but such is the life of stage makeup. And sure, Rhonda here is quite used to that. So, let's see. Yeah, I'm going in, adding a little more skin texture, because skin isn't perfectly smooth. It's got all these little flecks and flakes and, like, your pores that cause light to scatter around a little bit. So, if you just add little indications of that, that helps a lot. So I'm working on different layers and then kind of erasing back, just so I can tone it down if I've gone too far. Let's see. Yeah, some other feedback he gave and at this stage was, a little too much detail in the hat with that shading. So I kind of toned that down a bit, added more texture to her hair just to bring that up and, smooth out the background so it's not quite as sharp and distracting. There are a lot of different things that you do to kind of improve your focus, and having that difference in sharp and soft edges is a big part of that. So here I am going in, just kind of like fine-tuning those sharp edges, trying to pick where I want the focus to be and softening down the other things. And pretty soon here you're going to see me really start to stylize this a lot. So this was another step coming up from that kind of was in David's videos, and adds a lot of personality. Like, I don't know if I would do quite as wild as this. Oh, here you go. Yeah, look at that. Just getting wild, throwing crazy like textures and layered strokes on top of each other, just see what I can come up with. Feels a lot like collage, and this is a lot more free than I typically am. It's a lot of fun, but I don't know if I want to do this look again quite this way. So we'll see what I can come up with. Maybe I'll do it in the background, but leave the subject a little more traditional. So I added these like big kind of X streaks on there. I kind of had the thought like, oh, this is kind of like stage lighting maybe, because she's a showgirl, so girl needs some lights, right? Okay, there we go. So I skip back just so you have a visual while I'm wrapping up this discussion. There you go. Ooh. Okay, thanks, Rhonda. All right, yeah, so this was a lot of fun. Still kind of surprised that I managed to pull this off in just a week, following his different steps. So it was cool to see other people kind of come along this journey with me, and I was able to step in and help them out and get some feedback on what I was doing. So just kind of taken away, I think I definitely need to do more like this. Until I get enough of a command to do it on my own. I think I'm still a little too tied to the exact reference of what I get. So, like if I don't have the exact photo of a head at the angle that I need it, or, the lighting's slightly different than I want, then it becomes really difficult for me to capture that within my illustration composition. So I think this is just the beginning, really. I'm going to be pushing this a lot more on my own, just so I can take it to my, more elaborate illustrative compositions, book covers, things that I can tell a story with. But I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to share this with Rhonda next. I hope she likes it too. So yeah, thanks for joining me. Come check out my website, neilc.com, and follow me on social media, and you can share a lot of behind the scenes and other little sketches and stuff that I don't show on my website. So yeah, come check it out and follow me, and I might follow you back. Thanks. Bye, guys.